Look, not many players can claim to be better than Michael Jordan, but this guy actually was. Meet Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, the only player who could get under his airness's skin. This is someone who was one of the league's most underrated players. Many haven't even heard the name Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf until he recently recalled his battle with NBA legend Michael Jordan. But back in the day, scouts and basketball professionals across the nation quickly recognized Abdul-Rauf's talent. There was something special about him. In fact, he once claimed that having Tourette's syndrome when he was a young child contributed to his success as a basketball player. Mahmoud, who recently joined Sway's universe, recalled the day when he easily scored on Jordan during a Nike camp. And get this, he didn't score on Michael Jordan once, but twice. Everyone who saw that exchange went crazy, but this guy walked off like it was no big deal. I bet even MJ was wondering who played him like that. Who was he? And where did he come from? Abdul-Rauf was a highly anticipated high school and college prospect who was chosen third overall by the Denver Nuggets in the 1990 NBA draft. Before being dealt to the Sacramento Kings in June 1996, he lived and worked in the Mile High City for 6 good years. Sadly, his glory days didn't last too long. If you're wondering where he went or why you haven't heard of him before, there's a reason. He sorta kneeled before Colin Kaepernick did. As a result of his decision to stop standing for the national anthem in protest, controversies soon began to surround him. The NBA leadership at the time didn't like Abdul-Rauf's claim that the flag was a symbol of oppression. He also voiced out loud that the United States had a long history of tyranny. Obviously, nobody was gonna take it. So he eventually took his basketball career abroad, but his magic on the court is often missed. Mahmoud was frequently dubbed as Steph Curry before Steph Curry. That's because he was one of the NBA's original high-volume three-point shooting guard pioneers. What's more, he also had a remarkable ability to make tough contest, long-distance shots. Made him look like a breeze. Now, he's typically forgotten by the NBA's younger fans these days, but his accomplishments on the court are remembered by those who followed him back then. And if you ask Michael Jordan, his answer might surprise you. Okay, maybe this is because it must be embarrassing for the big guy to get crossed twice by a newbie at camp, or maybe because we didn't get to see the two go head-to-head in NBA Finals. But when asked who he thinks could beat him, Jordan took another name. New athletes constantly come up on the scene and put Michael Jordan's dominance to the test. You know, the whole GOAT debate. So naturally, he was questioned about the GOAT debate once and for all, and if he thinks there's a player in the NBA, past or present, who can defeat him in a one-on-one match. In response, Jordan said in an interview from 2013 that only Kobe Bryant would be able to defeat him in a one-on-one match, but mostly because Kobe copied all of Jordan's moves. His words, not mine, but I'm sure you know what a big deal it is to cut off Jordan the way Mahmoud did. He was the most dominant player of his time and averaged 30.1 points per game at the end of his career. Jordan exuded swag, a will to excel, and an unrivaled sense of self-assurance. It was a real terror to play against him. In fact, I don't think we've ever witnessed anyone show that much respect for a player or show that much fear of a player, right? Well, unless this legend swiped the ball from him, no respect there. You know what made Mahmoud so special? How meticulous he was with his craft. Abdul-Rauf was born Chris Swain Jackson on March 9, 1969 in Gulfport, Mississippi. He later converted to Islam and changed his name. Born to Jacqueline Jackson, his mother was a cafeteria worker who was also believed to exhibit the signs of the genetic disease. Abdul-Rauf was known to frequent the city's playground basketball courts while growing up in a low-income household with a single mother. He would often practice for hours on end, shooting hundreds of free throws each day, all the while perfecting the trajectory and arc of his shot and the way the ball would strike the net, making sure the ball never even touched the hoop. Some patients with Tourette syndrome experience symptoms that cause the brain to set irrational goals that must be met in order to be satisfied. So each and every one of those hundreds of free throws had to feel just perfect for him. Otherwise, he'd start from scratch. The ball needed to fall into his hand in the ideal position. He'd need to release the ball just how it should from his fingertips. His shot spin better feel flawless. He'd remain on that court until he'd fully accomplished the objectives his mind had unintentionally set for him. This was both Abdul Rauf's blessing and his curse. The same illness that made him cry himself to sleep at night because he was unable to control the tics and unusual behavior was also what made him practice for countless hours, which ultimately helped him become a successful professional basketball player. Sadly, there were bumps along the road. He established a number of state records while leading Gulfport High School to multiple state titles. In fact, many people still regard him as the greatest player to ever represent Mississippi. Abdul Rauf was regarded as a blue-chip prospect after his senior year and was pursued by numerous elite college programs. He's well recognized for having the most productive freshman season in NCAA history during his first year at university. He still retains the NCAA record for the most overall points scored by a freshman with 30.2 points per game average. His similarly strong sophomore season meant that Abdul Rauf was selected for the first-team All-American squad for the second consecutive year. He even appeared on the Sports Illustrated cover. The Denver Nuggets selected the young prodigy with the third overall pick in the 1990 NBA draft. It was clear that they were super hopeful of his future in their team, but sadly, Abdul Rauf really failed in his first two NBA seasons. He gained 30 pounds, suffered a foot injury, and averaged 14.1 points per game in his rookie season. His scoring average dropped to 10.3 points per game in his second season, and critics all over the league soon started to call him a flop. In the midst of his on-court difficulties, Abdul Rauf felt demoralized and crippled by the fame that comes with being in the NBA. Then came his transformation. He became engrossed in Malcolm X's teachings and developed an interest in Islam as a way to cope with his troubles. His name was officially changed from Chris Jackson to Mahmoud Abdul Rauf in 1993 after he formally embraced Islam. By the way, his improvement on the court appeared to be closely related to his personal transformation. Abdul Rauf averaged 19.2 points per game in 1993 and was named the NBA's most improved player. Oh, and the Nuggets gave him a contract extension as a reward. In the years that followed, Mahmoud had a successful NBA career, with his greatest years coming with the Denver Nuggets teams of the early 1990s. But you'll never really appreciate how truly exceptional a player he was unless you actually got to watch him play. He was one of the league's fastest players, with the most lightning-fast release on his jump shot and perfect form. His amazing ball fake and a terrific crossover had players fumbling, and his free throw shooting was virtually a spiritual experience. And yes, he's the player who could have scored on Michael Jordan easily. See you around.